Hi, welcome to Walpole Five-0. I'm Chief John Carmichael. Today is November 8th, 2016. Hopefully everybody got out there and voted today. The polls were very busy in Walpole. Police officers have been out there working hard, making sure that traffic is taken care of and everybody can move freely in and outside of the polls today. Basically, so I'm going to go over some things that have happened since the last time we recorded a show. The first thing I'd like to talk about is basically a purse snatching that occurred out on Route 1 at a Route 1 business. The victim had left their purse inside of one of the carts while they were inside shopping. An individual had walked up when the victim wasn't looking and basically just removed that purse from the cart and got away with a good amount of cash and credit cards and that type of thing. So what we want to make sure that you do is when you're in any of the shopping stores that you secure your belongings. Be very careful leaving a purse or a wallet in a cart where people, that have ill intent might want to walk up and steal that from you. Good thing that happened here in this case, the victim immediately canceled their credit cards, which is a very good idea because a lot of times what we see is when people steal wallets and they get access to credit cards, that they will use them very quickly and sometimes as soon as within 15 or 20 minutes. Luckily, in this case, the victim didn't lose any more of their credit cards or information that way. This past week, we had 2 overdoses in Walpole. One was an opiate-related overdose. The other was a polydrug use, which is basically the individual had consumed large amounts of alcohol as well as other drugs mixed in. I want to take a note that there's been 114 overdoses in Walpole since 2011. 22 of those have been fatalities. We've administered Narcan 51 times, and that's either through first responders, police and fire, and or bystander administrations of Naloxone or Narcan as we call it. Real quickly, I'll just show you what it looks like. This is the containers that the police officers carry in their car. And basically what the officers do when they go to a report of an overdose is they'll remove this from their packets. This is called an atomizer, which is already attached to this device. This is the Naloxone medication. We basically just remove this cap, insert the Naloxone right into the injector, and what we do is we put this in each nostril. So we do about 2 milligrams in one nostril and another 2 in the other nostril. And we basically will just squeeze that out into the nostrils of the victim. And it's an amazing drug that has saved many lives. And the Walpole Police Department, what we want to do is just make sure that we contribute, we help out. And I know that a lot of people in the community have also got access to nasal naloxone to help assist in the event that they have a loved one or a friend or somebody that's close to them that might be suffering from a substance abuse disorder and therefore possibly suffer from an overdose. Some of what we see in Walpole, a lot of opiate and opioid abuse, heroin. Also, what we get back from the lab a lot of times is fentanyl, but also sometimes mixed with other drugs like benzodiazepines, diazepam and Valium and that kind of drug, as well as muscle relaxants. So we see a lot of polydrug use where there's a trinity of these drugs that are being used and people have overdosed. And it's really one of the most significant problems in Walpole, and we're very committed to stopping this problem. We do have resource kits that are available as well through the police department. And if there's families out there or individuals that would like to get one of these resource kits, we urge you to reach out to us. Talks about treatment and detox. We have Bureau of Substance Abuse Services cards in here. We have documents that talk about stigma, drop-in centers, the Good Samaritan law, which protects people when they call 911 in good faith to help somebody that's suffering from an overdose. The Mass Bar Association and their assistance in giving families free access to a lawyer to help them with Section 35 involuntary commitments. So there's a lot of good resources in here, and if you would like one, or if you know somebody that would like one, we encourage you to reach out and would love to help you out with that situation. Halloween, we had some extra patrols out there assisting with trick-or-treaters this year. It was a great presence. Our officers were out there on motorcycles. We had 3 or 4 motorcycles out there helping out, bicycle patrols, and we got a lot of good positive feedback having the officers out there and really engage in the community. I think the officers probably had more fun than the kids did that night. We had a report of us getting rid of a syringe that was located at a location up towards Route 1. Our officers responded and we picked that up. We want to make sure that we urge the community to be very careful because these needles, these syringes have been found in many locations. Sometimes they're in a park, sometimes they're in a cemetery setting, they're maybe just sitting on the side of the road on a sidewalk. And police officers will go out and retrieve those and bring them back to the station so that we can dispose of it properly. We urge you not to touch it. Make sure that your kids don't touch it or anything like that because they could be subjected to the drugs that are inside of that syringe as well as any biohazards, transfer of blood or anything like that. So we'd be very careful with that. We do pick them up quite often and the officers are trained and they know how to dispose of them properly. We had a report of stolen medication, which kind of related, but a lot of times what will happen is somebody's medication will be stolen and they'll come in for a police report because a lot of times their police report generated will help them get a prescription. Now we don't typically do that because what we find is a lot of times that if somebody's medication is stolen, it just happens to be opiate pharmaceuticals such as oxycodone, it might be hydrocodone, and we really don't want to get into taking a larceny report on something like that, giving them a report so that they can go to the doctor and get another prescription. So we encourage you, if that does happen, go speak with your doctor about it and try and deal with that situation in that case. Larceny arrest up on Route 1. 2 shoplifters were arrested. Officer O'Connor, one of our newest officers, made that arrest of 2 individuals who stole over $300 worth of merchandise from a Route 1 location. They were also charged with a conspiracy. And you know, the good thing about this is the 2 individuals arrested were very cooperative with the police and helped us out with the investigation and everything. I do want to make a note that, you know, when I go through these reports and I report back to the community, that I'm going to be very careful with making sure that I protect people's identity and make sure that I keep things confidential so that, you know, not to embarrass anybody or anything like that, but making sure that the community is still aware of some of the things going on in the same sense. So, truck stuck under the bridge on Plimpton Street. We deal with this a lot. The bridge on Plimpton Street is only 12 feet high. The bridge on West Street is also 12 feet high, both bridges on West Street. The problem is a lot of trucks out there are upwards over 12 feet, some as high as 13.6, I think is the highest you can have for a tractor-trailer unit. So they do get stuck under there once in a while. So for the truckers out there, make sure that you're paying attention to the signage and don't drive underneath any of those bridges. We had a report of an intoxicated male show up at a home in North Walpole. This was a situation where we responded, handled as a medical. We assisted that individual to the hospital to help them detox. It ended up being that you know, it was just an intoxicated person that went up to someone's door. We dealt with a suspicious individual up on Route 1 who somebody reported that they felt that this individual may have been looking into motor vehicles. We responded up there, located the individual, and we conducted what's called an FIO, a field interview interrogation, or field interview observation. And we spoke to that individual and determined that nothing of the sort was really taking place. One of the big things here is that I'm going to get into it a little further down, but we have had some car breaks in Walpole, so we were hoping that this might have linked this individual into what we've been dealing with, but that didn't pan out as we thought. Suspicious activity. An individual showed up at someone's door, again in North Walpole. They rang the doorbell, said that they had a TV to deliver, but the homeowner declined. Ultimately, we did find this vehicle a few minutes later, and it turned out that they were at the wrong house. Point with this one is that the Walpole Police Station, our station in the parking lot, can be used as a safe haven. So if you're ever transferring goods, you want to swap something out, or maybe it's like on Craigslist or something like that, you can surely come down to the police station. and you can have that person meet you here, and you can do that exchange in the parking lot, you know, under the guise of our camera system that are out there and everything. Or if you want to come into the lobby, you can always do that. We have had situations in Walpole where, say it was a Craigslist sale, they meet at a certain location, and the individual has actually been robbed. We've had an armed robbery right at the MBTA station last year when that same type of scenario played out. So more than happy to have you come down here and make those transfers. Protective custody man came in and just asked police officers at the desk to place him in protective custody. And you know, I guess, you know, you have to give it to this individual because we're glad that, you know, he didn't go try and drive, or he didn't do anything where he could have got himself into more trouble. Obviously understood that there was a situation and came into the station, and we were more than happy to bring him in and make sure that he had a safe night. Operating under the influence, we had an OUI arrest. This was a concerned citizen that called it in, had seen this operator traveling in front of him, driving erratically, and appreciate the citizen taking the time to call this report in. Our officers ended up finding the individual, placing him under arrest for second offense OUI. And while they were doing the after search of the vehicle, they found a stun gun and brass knuckles. The brass knuckles were actually part of the stun gun. So just to show you somehow how difficult police work can be, the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts, the SJC, had recently made a decision that even having possession of a stun gun is a crime in Massachusetts. So we would charge somebody under that, as it's a dangerous weapon, and as such we would charge with it. But the SJC case just made it all the way up to them, and it was Commonwealth versus Catano. And in that case, the SJC basically said that the stun gun was not a constitutional right. It didn't violate their Second Amendment. But then what happened right after that is the Supreme Court made a different decision, and the Supreme Court ended up vacating the Supreme Judicial Court's decision, and they're saying that it is a violation of the Second Amendment. And so right now we're in a kind of a difficult situation because we don't know whether or not we can charge or we can't charge. But in this case, where it was a stun gun and the brass knuckles, we did charge under the possession of the stun gun. So in this case, we did charge, and just to show like what some of the difficulties that the officers have to deal with. A deer was struck, and this was the second or third deer struck that we had this past week. So important to note is that this is the time of year when we start to see these. The leaves start coming down, it's fall, the deer start having less food, and they start moving around a lot more. So some of these deer are going to be out there, they're going to be crossing the street. So just be watchful and look out for these deer, because they will run right out in front of you. And as we've seen in the past week, we've had 2 or 3 that have been struck in Walpole roads. Larceny of a motor vehicle, this is the one I was talking about that I would get to later, but we've had probably, I'm going to say 12 to 16 car breaks over the last week. Most of them have been situated in North Walpole, and more specifically the Wagon Road, Musket, Homewood Lane area. All of these vehicles were unsecure, so you know, we always want to let people know that make sure you lock your cars. A very good practice is to make sure you're not leaving things in plain view. Like if you leave your wallet in the car, if you leave, a lot of times laptops will be left in the car, and those will be items that people will actually smash the window, break in, and take these items. But in this case, a lot of the vehicles were, in fact, all of them were unsecure vehicles. So I know this is Walpole, but you know, keep your lock your vehicles, lock your homes, and safeguard your property, and that's always a good tip to make sure that you're keeping your belongings safe. Missing child report, we did respond to on Lincoln Road, a home for little wanderers, multiple times this week, mostly with kids that had walked away from the school. Our officers go out there, they locate them, basically corral them and bring them back to the home. This is a very common occurrence up there, but you know, these are kids that live in a different environment, and the kids are susceptible to wandering, and the police always respond and help out the staff best we can. One of our citizens actually reported one of these two, that the individual had come to their house and came up to the door, so we were able to return that child back. Winter Street, we had a report of a motor vehicle that struck a tree. There was airbag deployment, but luckily nobody was injured in that accident, so we're glad that that person was okay. Malicious destruction of property, this was again back at Home for Little Wanderers. We went up there for a disruptive student. The individual was attempting to fight staff members, and as a result, our officers went up there and had to place this individual under arrest. And typically what happens with that situation is that we will then transfer them over to a secure lockup, a juvenile lockup, bring them over to Brockton, and then the next day we have to go up there and bring them down to juvenile court. So that's just another situation we had to deal with down there. Drug take-back box, Detective Kilroy picked that up. That's the drug take-back box, is a box that's located in our lobby here at the police station. We take in about 500 pounds of pharmaceuticals every year, so it's a very successful program. District Attorney Michael Morrissey is the one who gave us that drug take-back box. And we do bring in a lot of drugs that we see in our overdoses, so a lot of benzodiazepines, a lot of muscle relaxers, a lot of opiate pills and that kind of thing. So we are getting those things, making sure that those are being safely disposed of and they're not getting turning out to be in the hands of people that might use them for different purposes. We had a disturbance report. An individual reported they were walking their dog and they were approached by a male with a bow, and that the individual threatened to kill his dog. So we ended up reaching out to that person. We identified them and spoke to them about this, did an investigation on it. Quickly, there is no hunting in the town of Walpole unless you're on private property and you have property by that written permission by that property owner to be on the property and to be hunting. Other than that, you can't hunt on town of Walpole property. You can't hunt on private property without their permission. So we do have a bylaw that does include shotgun, rifle, and or bow. So this individual shouldn't have been where he was in the first place. We assisted Norwood PD with mutual aid, a noise complaint, odor of marijuana. This is a common occurrence. It's become more common since we decriminalized marijuana and since we had medical marijuana. It does become a difficult situation when it's an apartment building or that type of environment, because when somebody's smoking marijuana, it does cause that pungent odor to spread and it bothers other people. And so it makes it, puts the police in a bad spot that there's not too much we can do about it, but really if the smoke is bothering somebody else, it may arise to the level of disturbing the peace. Not in this case, but that it can. An animal report, this is Officer Haber working the midnight shift. He found a vehicle that was on Union Street, and the vehicle had been abandoned there for quite some time, about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And at some point, the officer came back and noticed that the car was still there, so he investigated further, and he found that there was a dog that was in the back, and the dog had likely been there that entire time. The dog was shivering and cold, had no water, had no food. So the officer gained entry to that vehicle. The animal control officer went out there and took the dog, and we secured the vehicle and took the keys. The owner later came back, but we did charge that individual with cruelty to animals under a new statute that protects animals while they're in a vehicle. So it's not a good idea to leave a pet in a vehicle for too long, especially with the windows closed and no access to food, water, or even on a cold night or a hot day. So in this case, that individual was charged with that. A larceny arrest, again up on Route 1, shoplifters. 2 people were placed under arrest. In this case here, there was one of the individuals, after they were arrested, they came back to the police station. They provided false names to the booking officers, and this ultimately led to the real identity of the individual, who then found out that she had a warrant out for her from Boston PD. So she was additionally charged with false name, shoplifting, as well as the warrant out of Boston. And so that pretty much concludes today, November 8th, 2016. And again, I just want to quickly mention the resource kits. If anybody would like to get those, please please reach out to the department, or if you see a police officer on the street, feel free to go up and talk to them about it, and would love to get those to you if we can help in any way. And any tips or suggestions, I always welcome to hear that as well. So thank you very much.